Good morning, everyone. The time of the chime is 9 a.m. That means it's time for us to do some commerce. Welcome to the Commerce Committee. I'm your host today, Kevin Vaughn, and I would ask our clerk to please take the roll. See who's in their place with a bright, shiny face this morning.
Representatives Alexander, Barrett, Boyd, Burkhart, Camper, Clemens, Faison, Freeman, Garrett, Hale, Hardaway, Haston, Hazelwood, Holzclaw, Johnson, Lynn, Marsh, Moon, Powers, Sparks, Thompson, Towns, Vital, Williams, Zachary, Vice Chairman Bricken, Chairman Vaughn. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Good to see everybody here on a lead-off Tuesday morning. Glad to be back in the building with our dear friends. And what better way to start an action-packed Tuesday morning than listening to Representative Butler present House Bill 1807. We've got a motion and a second. Representative Butler, the floor is yours, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. Do we want to address the amendment? Just go ahead and put that on there, or is that necessary, Chairman?
You know, Representative Butler, why don't you share a little bit about your heart this morning, then let me run this committee and figure out when the amendment's going on. If you've shared all the heart that you want to share, then we'll take up some technicalities. But we like to get to know each other a little bit here in the Commerce Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure we're in the proper posture. No.
Next up is House Bill 655 by Representative Fritz. Representative Fritz, you have an amendment traveling with yours. We've got three amendments traveling with yours. We have House Amendment 1, which is 5768, House Amendment 2, which is 6027, House Amendment 3, which is 6442, and then you're proposing an Amendment 4, which is drafting code. Why don't you hit me with it and see if we're all on the same page?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Committee. 13943 is the amendment that I would like to have. It is that drafting code. The language in the amendment is crafted in cooperation with the Commerce and Insurance, and it makes the bill.
All right then. Do we hear a motion for amendment? All righty. All in favor of attaching Amendment 1, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Hearing none. We're dealing with Amendment 3. Why don't you tell us about your legislation, what that amendment did to it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And good morning again to everyone. Good morning. Good Tuesday morning. The legislation as amended does basically just two things. It increases the dollar amount used in definition of a contractor from $25,000 to $50,000. That was a number, the $25,000 was added on in the 90s. So this is an adjustment for inflation. And it raises the amount for a surety bond or letter of irrevocable credit for a home improvement contractor license from $10,000 to $25,000, Mr. Chairman. Those are the two things it does. Why I think we need this. According to Department of Commerce and Insurance, the $25,000 amount used to define contractor in code was established in 1994. Due to inflation over the past 30 years, it's estimated that $25,000 has a spending power in today's dollars of about $12,000. By doubling the amount from 25 to 50, we simply adjust for inflation that has impacted these small businesses and preserve the original intent of this provision in legislation. The current required amounts for surety bonds and irrevocable letters of credit were established in 1994 as well. Increasing these amounts also maintains the original legislative intent with respect to protecting the public from bad actors, which we need to do in the profession. And it simply helps support a supply chain of workers. Every meeting I sit in, Chairman and Committee, back in my district, we talk about not being able to get workers. I think that this bond certainly helps, or this bill certainly helps with that, and increases the breadth of the market from what has been narrowed down by the inflationary impacts on the dollars. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I take any questions.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Chairman Boyd, you got a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and sponsor. This came through our subcommittee last year, and I have a couple of questions about it. So when it came through before, we kind of agreed upon raising, I believe it was the home improvement from, and you can speak to that in a minute, but are we raising this from 10 to 15 or from 25 to 50? And does this apply to other contractors other than home improvement? Can you, I guess, just tell us what's different than what we passed last year when Chairman Howell brought it out of business utility sub?
Mr. Sponsor.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. Great question. This was the Senate language captured in this amendment from what you all had heard back in the spring. And it simply does take the $25,000 where mentioned on the amendment. There are several sections of code mentioned where the $25,000 is used, and it would take that to 50. And then it raises the surety bond for home improvement contractors, which is the 626506 section H that you'll see mentioned there, from $10,000 to $25,000.
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you. So their license is now at 50,000. You're raising that to 50, but the bond requirement is set at 25,000. Is that right?
For specifically for the home improvement contractors, the bond, that section deals specifically with the home improvement contractors.
Chairman Boyd. Excuse me, I've got Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Chairman. As a licensed contractor, I don't love this bill because I go through every other year of paying $5,000 to $10,000 to keep my license, and then I pay insurance and I pay bonds and I pay all these fees to keep them, and then we're going to raise this to $50,000. And the previous speaker mentioned a license. This is not a license. These are unlicensed people. And there's no tests. There's no requirements. I know we talked about a bond being such a number, but if you're not going to get a permit, nobody's checking whether you got insurance. Nobody's checking whether you got a bond. You're just out here working. And most of these people that I see in this column are people that we warn our parents not to talk to. And that bothers me. If somebody's on the up and up, they're going to have their license, they're going to have their insurance, and they're going to have their bonds, and they're going to want to do the right thing. This gives another avenue and increases that avenue for people who are not on the up and up. And that, again, that bothers me. So anyway, this is just a bill that I can't support. And I know that I've been contacted by numerous people and home builders and several other different groups. And anyway, I just can't support that. I just wanted you to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your comments, Representative. I do appreciate it. You and I talked about this, and I would just offer that this doesn't change many of those things that you just mentioned. It simply raises that number to adjust for inflation. We're at a 40-year high in inflation right now in our country, and this adjusts to keep that market where it was designed to be when the $25,000 was put in place. I do appreciate your comments.
Chairman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor. One quick question. The bond you mentioned, the surety bond, was for $25,000, but we're raising this to $50,000. So why wouldn't we be doing a $50,000 surety bond for that?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question. It's my understanding, and legal may correct me on this, but that section of the code that the $10,000 to $25,000 surety or bond addresses the home improvement contractor specifically, and this the 25 to 50 takes account for all those contractors. It covers the plumbers, the electricians, up to the 50 to increase that dollar figure again, so that we adjust for inflation.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay, and yes, I'm with you on that one. But if we're doing if we're raising that to $50,000, why wouldn't we want them bonded for that $50,000, no matter if it's home improvement or who it might be?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry. And I do appreciate the comment. Again, our intent when I spoke with Chairman Howell to take this bill up was to maintain consistency with what the current legislative language was. And we did that just going from 10 to 25 because those numbers didn't match either, and going from 25 to 50.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sponsor, as you can tell, this, we chewed this thing up one side and down the other in subs. So coming in with an amendment that flips it back to the Senate language here when it gets to full committees kind of got some of us scratching our heads. So just bear with us. We got questions.
Yes, sir.
Questions abound this morning.
Yes, sir.
Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for Representative Friends for bringing this particular piece of legislation. I've got several issues with it, unfortunately. I'm involved in a lawsuit right now where we're suing a contractor for contracting outside their contractor's license, right? What that does is for that particular contractor is it presents a situation where you're subjecting that contractor to the Tennessee Consumer Protection Act because they're contracting outside their limits of what they can get a license for. And so that puts them personally responsible for any damages that they may incur, along with triple damages, attorney's fees, et cetera. Should they license outside their particular contractor's license? That's a remedy that you have. Here you have no remedy. Here you have $50,000, which in a lot of cases are roofs or kitchen remodels or pools or significant amount of work that provide for a significant amount of skill in doing this. My second problem with this is that not only are, if you're doing some sort of remodel, if you're doing some sort of roof or doing some sort of project, you might find further problems. You might have foundational issues on a house. You might have mold. You might have something that comes, asbestos or whatever the case may be, that homeowner is going to be like, well, I've got a guy. He's great. He's giving us a quote. He's going to do this. When that $50,000 or $49,000 project turns into a $149,000 project, who's going to be there that says, oh, I can do this. I can take care of this. You're going to create a situation where someone's going to be contracting to do work for an unassuming, unknowing consumer, and all of a sudden get in a situation where they're completely gutting their house and they are unlicensed. And part of the license process is they have to have not only the bond that they can purchase, but they also have to have the financial fortitude to say, we can do this up to my contractor's license, right? There's no protection whatsoever in a situation where if you get into a $20,000 project and it turns into a $120,000 project, they're not going to stop. Someone's not going to come back and do the work that someone else started because they can't guarantee that work, right, that they did. So you're going to have a hard time finding the next person that could be a licensed contractor to finish the job that they can't do because it's going to go over $50,000. So I know that we have an inflation issue, and I know this is trying to meet inflation, but a year ago, I just put a roof on my house and it was less than that, but more than 25,000. So I would not be hiring someone. The first thing I ask them is that, one, are you licensed and can you do it? We're allowing a space now where people can do work that they may not have the expertise to do. And then it could balloon into something that could be more, raising this threshold. So I'm have some grave concerns about allowing someone to do work with unassuming consumers, homeowners, elderly people, roof people that come in after a storm and say, boom, here's what you need. And they're not licensed and they can put a roof on most of the time for less than $50,000. So that's where I share some concerns. What does this do to protect someone that might be in that position that could increase the limits of what they're able to do unlicensed to someone's home?
Sponsor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. Great question. I share some of those similar concerns about the environment as well. And I don't think that we are restricted from being able to require a license or a bond under current law today. If I, the homeowner, have something happen to my home, weather related or whatever, I don't think I'm restricted from that. This bill doesn't change any of that. Again, my focus in this bill is simply to adjust for inflation. Doesn't change any of those attributes of the law, I think, that we just described. That same exceeding the 25,000 or exceeding the 50. And again, I would offer that inflationary, we have allowed this over time to further constrain those small businesses. And I do offer that many of these small business owners that are not fully licensed contractors go out to do a good job each day. Perhaps they're family type businesses that just can't afford the overhead that it costs to be a licensed contractor. And I think encouraging those small businesses to be able to stay in helps not only them, but I think it also helps us as the consumer to be able to get to some of those smaller jobs, because we are workforce constrained in many areas, as you know. So I hope that helps them, Representative.
You good?
One more.
All right, follow up.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative
Chairman. Thank you for that explanation. But, you know, we always try to find some sort of solution, right? That sometimes the means how we get there to the ends it is what it is. And if we're having issues with people getting a license or be able to have the wherewithal to do a project, would it make any more sense to eliminate or reduce some of the fees if you're going to have those limits that are under 50,000? So if you're going to be a builder and your contractor's license is $1 million, that's what you can contract to do under a contractor's license for a home, right? You can't go over that. Those fees are whatever those fees are to obtain that level of a contractor's license. Is there not a better way that if you're only going to do work that's 50,000 or less, you still have to get a license, but maybe your fees aren't what they would be if you wanted that $1 million cap or $2 million cap or whatever it is? That seems like a better solution to what you're trying to capture, rather than having more folks potentially doing work that's unchecked, unlicensed, and potentially have no ability to build or replace a roof on top of a house. That's my concern, is that the small amount of folks will have no idea even what a bond could possibly be. And if they don't have to submit that to the state, they can apply for the proceeds to the bond if they've been wronged. And that's just a little bit of my issue that I have. So I'm afraid we're opening up a market where bad actors can play. So thank you for the bill.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Sponsor, you good over there?
I am. Yes, sir.
All right. Next up, we have Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I kind of want to expand a little bit from what my colleague from Sumner County just brought up. And, you know, I too am a contractor, and part of the process of applying for a contractor's license is you have to have so much liquid cash around. You've got to be able to pay your bills. And the reason for that is, in the past, we would have contractors that would go do work for someone. They would get paid for that work, and then they wouldn't have the money to pay their subs because they didn't have the cash. And then it rolls back to the homeowner. And to the point that's been made numerous times, we're expanding that to up to $50,000 worth of work, where we could have someone come in, do $50,000 worth of work, not pay their vendors because they're, you know, borrowing from the next project to pay for the last one. And having that large amount of money being held with the consumers, I think is a problem. And right now, it's a long process to get a contractor's license. It's a difficult thing. You have to be extremely smart. That's what I've been told. I'm kidding. But I mean, it's a very extensive test, and to have people not have to take that test and be able to do up to $50,000 worth of work gives me great concern that we're not looking out for the interest of Tennesseans. But I appreciate your bill.
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your comments. First, for those of y'all who are contractors, I think all of y'all are very smart. But I would offer that we aren't really changing this economic, colleagues. I thought, as I hear your thoughts on these things, bought a new pickup in 2008. I paid $20,000 for it. Bought a new pickup in 2021, very close to the pickup I drove for a long time, and I paid $53,000. The buying power of our dollars went down, and some of that's natural with time. Some of it is attributed to the last 3 years of unwarranted financial policy in DC. And it's put these small businesses, again, that do provide a service for us in a point of risk. And so I see this as just catching up with what inflation has done to the dollar.
All righty, Mr. Sponsor, I think we heard that whistling. I think those were the bipartisan cold winds blowing across the prairie on this matter. I think I'd like to extend you an olive branch if you'd like to send this thing back to Business and Utilities, since you have not experienced that subcommittee with this bill in the past like your predecessor. I notice your predecessor is not there at the podium today. If you'd like to do that, we can send it back, or we can forage on across the prairie here with those cold winds blowing. It's up to you at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I appreciate y'all's consideration on this. It's not to have great opposition to taking this back to subcommittee. I'm okay with just taking a vote on it with the cold winds blowing. I certainly am, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sir. Speaker Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I understood you correctly, the bill as amended would allow an unlicensed, let's say, an unlicensed electrician to do $50,000 worth of electrical work.
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, sir, as I understand the law, it certainly would. Yes, sir.
Speaker Johnson.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple quick questions. I just want to make sure I understand. I've heard, probably not meaning, but some disparaging remarks, as such as what I heard is they say these are the kind of people you might not want your parents to talk to. But is it true that these are the subcontractors that are currently doing the work?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, to the representative's question, I think that's going to be the case in many cases, that these would be the subcontractors perhaps working for a contractor in many cases. I can't put a number on that.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like the committee, as you consider this, and I obviously see the cold winds blowing too, but you consider in your district right now, is it possible to find a contractor to come do a project that's less than $100,000? Most of the time, they don't have the chance to do that. So with what the deputy speaker just brought up, can you do $50,000 worth of electricity? Well, currently, in the last 20, 30 years, you could do $25,000 worth of electricity. So I'm with the sponsor of the bill. We're really not changing a whole lot here. And also remind yourself that these are the guys who are currently doing what you consider the scrub work. The contractors are already using these guys. And if you think that you don't want your parents to talk to them, then why would you be hiring these guys in the first place? Because that's the truth. Typically, these contractors are hiring these guys to do that. So I just want to try to offer a little bit to understand it's really not this deep that we're making it. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
All righty. Thank you, Chairman Faison. And I think we've got a blanket disclaimer here for every member of this committee. No disparaging from anyone is intended, implied, or spoken. Now then, let's move on. Representative Lynn.
Thank you. I think Chairman Faison kind of stole my thunder. I just see this as an inflationary adjustment. When this law was put into place years ago, it was the same expanse of threshold. So I kind of feel like we're helping the little guy. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lynn. Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Representative Fritz, for bringing the bill. I have several concerns, but I guess my question, other than the inflate, is what is broken about the system currently that would necessitate us to want to raise this just for inflationary purposes? Is there something that's broken about the way it works now?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question. That's a great question. We've talked about many of the things that may be broken today already. Many of the concerns that I've heard are things that may be broken in the current system or in need of some repair. This is simply to raise that cap. So the cap, the way it impacts some of the small businesses, is they can't bid on those jobs. If you read through the law, they can't bid, offer, manage, whole list of words that they can't do if it's over $25,000. And this would allow those small mom and pop type businesses, who in many cases are very skilled craftsmen, to do that roof or to do that bathroom remodel. So I think there's probably some things in current law, in many cases, not just in this case, things that we need to look at. Our approach in this, my approach in this, was to simply get the cap lifted so that we would maintain an equal footing to what we had in 1994 when this law went into place.
Chairman Williams.
I understand that point. My concern here is that there's really not anything we're fixing as it relates to the cost. Being a contractor myself, the cost of entry into being a licensed contractor is a little bit of study and $250. I mean, that's what it costs for a license here in the state. And so to me, it seems like in order to protect the citizens as it relates to who they might do business with, it seems like a small hurdle really to sit for the contractor's license to really establish that. My fear is if you increase this number under the premise that Speaker Johnson said, you might have an unknowing homeowner hire an electrical subcontractor direct for $45,000, a framing contractor for $40,000, and next thing you know, you got a $400,000 project, not a licensed person anywhere on the job. It doesn't take into consideration all the different things that, from a legal perspective, Chairman Garrett said earlier. I'm really concerned about this. I think it's I don't think it's a step in the right direction. I do think that your intentions are noble. I do think that. I just think that if there's not anything broken about the system now and people can operate this way, it's a protection for the citizens across the state to know that whoever they're going to do business with is going to be licensed to do that work and trained in order to make sure that they do that. And as somebody that does this every day, even I can be a contractor. And so we're not all geniuses. And so I would encourage the members to faithfully consider that. I think it's a slippery slope if we increase it just for inflationary pressures alone. But thank you for your time.
Mr. Sponsor.
Williams, I think that under the current law, all those problems you just described exist. That we could have a $25,000 if, there's an if there, a $25,000 this, a $25,000 that. But I think the intent of the law is not that. I'd certainly defer to legal if we need to, but I think the intent of the law is that it's the cost of the project. I think that that's the intent, but I would certainly defer to legal to see if that is the case.
Thank you, sir. We're back to Representative Burkhart. He had a follow-up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. You're talking about the little guys, and I think what at least in my mind is that the guys who can't afford this or that, those guys being hired they're going to be hired if they're great skillsmen. They're going to be hired by those licensed contractors. But like the spokesman earlier said, if this job goes from 25 to 50 to 100, they're limited on, and me following someone, and I think the other contractors on the committee here might agree with this. When you're walking in behind somebody who's already started a job, it changes the world there. And you don't really want to go behind somebody else because you don't know what's done or what's not done. But if somebody is looking for a job and they're a great skills person, they're going to be hired. I can promise you that they're going to work every day. The problem is what you're talking about with those skills people. For every one of those, there's probably 5 that are not that way, that are the other way, and that's what bothers me. And with the 25,000, we're just going for inflation. We're doubling the impact on our elderly. We're doubling the impact of fraud. There's where my concern is. But anyway, thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Sponsor, you good?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chairman. Just one quick thought. I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate the impact on the elderly. I think there's also an impact for availability of folks to do the work that we're encouraging with this. I had forgotten the code until I had to do the research. We have a $100,000 limit on masonry contractors in the law today. And some might argue that, okay, that's the Blockland bricklayer. He or she's less important than the electrician. Not sure that I would buy that, having been someone who used to lay a lot of blocks. But with that, lots of caveats in the existing law. And again, I would just offer to my colleagues, we're simply trying to adjust for the inflation.
All righty, Speaker Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as we've heard, there are a lot of builders all across the state, even in here on our committee, big and small. And the builders and contractors do have a professional association that I've been working with ever since I've been a rep up here, and I found them to be very knowledgeable. And I don't think that group is really excited about your proposal today. I just wondered, have you heard from the Builders and Contractors Professional Association and their input on this proposal?
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Marsh. Yes, through a lobbyist I did last Thursday, I had a lobbyist visit my office. I think he's a contract lobbyist in support of those groups, I think is his specific role. But we did talk, and there was some discussion about the numbers, and we had basically the same discussion we're having here today.
All right, thank you, Speaker Marsh. Chairlady Hazelwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really, just to underscore things that have been said here already, I think all of us would agree with the sponsor's intent to try and get more contractors, more workers in the field, and to be able for people to get their projects done, more quickly without having to wait an inordinate amount of time. But I really am concerned, again, as contractors up here have said, they know much more about it than I do. These folks can find work under the umbrella of a general contractor. So I don't think that they're being, blocked out of the work. And I think we just have a duty to consumers, particularly, we're not talking about commercial contractors here or large projects. We're talking about homeowners and the kind of scams. My mother is 97. She gets a call every other day from somebody who wants to put on a new roof or pave her driveway or do all kinds of wonderful projects for cheap. And I just really think that this bill would open a door that needs to remain closed. So I appreciate the intent. I appreciate your call and conversation about it, but just can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Y'all, we have chewed this topic up and we're about to spit it out. I've still got 3 or 4 folks remaining. You've not been recognized, Chairman. Representative Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, I understand exactly where you're coming from on this bill. I represent a rural district as well. Most of the contractors we've heard from this morning are in urban areas, and it's difficult to find contractors that will bid on a $28,000 or $32,000 job. As far as hiring a framer to do a job for under the contract price, and then coming in and getting an electrician, that's done all the time now. Especially if you're the homeowner, you can do that. You can hire whoever you want to do your project for you. If you look on Google right now and ask what the average square foot price is to build a house, it's $131 a square foot right now in Tennessee. That's just Tennessee. That's not Nashville. $131 a square foot is going to build you about 380 square feet with $50,000. You can't even finish out one of these utility sheds that the Amish are selling on the side of the highway for that amount of money. So the problem that you're trying to address, I think, is the fact that in some of these rural areas, you can't get a contractor. They may have fantastic people working underneath them that are unlicensed subs, but you can't get a contractor to bid on a $28,000 job because there's no money in it for them. They're all in Nashville. They're driving 50 miles to Nashville to go work on a $300 a square foot house because they make more money doing that. And if you tried to call somebody right now to put a new back deck on your house or a roof or something like that in Lewis County or Hohenwald, you're probably talking 4 or 5 months before you can get somebody to get to it, if they ever get to it, or if they'll even call you back. So I appreciate what you're trying to do. I think it is a problem that we need to address. I understand all the concerns that have been said up here. As an attorney for 25 years, I've sued just as many unlicensed contractors as I have licensed contractors, and seen just as much bad work from licensed and unlicensed. So the danger is always going to be out there to the consumer of being put in a situation where they have to go after somebody that's done a bad job. I think that you're trying to address that through the bond and the letter of credit. So again, I appreciate what you're trying to do. And I do think that you're highlighting an issue that we do have in Tennessee, particularly with the cost of building and labor right now. So thank you.
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question. You enlightened me to something that I was from a rural area. Growing up in Rockwood, I thought Kingston was a metropolis. So and I live in Kingston now. So with that, I do think that's a large part of it. All things are relative, to the point you made, Representative. And for that person who lives South River in Kingston, which is one of the people I'm fighting for here, who is a small business contractor, it's an important thing to keep them in the market and keep their profit margins where they can keep a family business going. And so I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. And in our desire not to impugn anybody, shout out to the Amish, builders of the sheds. Representative Holtzclaw, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to call a question.
The question has been called. All those in favor of sending House Bill 655 to calendar and rules, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? No. I'm afraid the cold winds got this one, Representative, but we've had a great discussion, and I think that I thought the path to the promised land was back through business and utilities, but I imagine you're going to be fighting for this guy next year, and I think with a little bit of work on it, we could probably get this thing across the finish line. But thank you for all the conversation between everybody today. We're on to our next item, and I'm going to pull some chairman's rank here because we're going to have to listen to Chairman Boyd for a couple of them. So instead, I'd like to insert Representative Butler back into the lineup. Representative Butler, House Bill 1807. We got a motion and a second. We also have some amendments. He doesn't want to talk about this without his amendments. That's clear. So we need to put both of them on. All right. We're going to have amendment. Do what? Oh, I'm sorry. I need to say the noes were prevailing on House Bill 655. All right. Now then, back to 1807, we've got an amendment which is traveling, which you need to put on it. I believe it's 13556. All those in favor of attaching amendment 13556, which shows up as amendment 2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. 2 is now on the bill. Representative Butler, can we get you to talk about your bill now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I knew this was one of my favorite committees to present a bill in, so I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of y'all again. This bill would allow for building inspections to be requested, and then the inspector show up to fulfill that request within 72 hours. And we've amended that. This amendment makes it 3 business days that inspection will be completed, with the exception of a certificate of occupancy inspection. It would be completed within 5 business days. And I heard discussion in the previous bill talk about making it more affordable, and I've had some discussions about affordable housing and so forth. And this is one of those bills that expedites the construction process and reduces the cost not only to the owner but to the contractor. So with that, I'll renew my motion and answer any questions.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Sponsor. You know, when you first presented this, I'll have to admit that I wasn't frosty towards it. I was somewhat, I would have to say, probably Temperature wise, I was somewhat agnostic, I would even say. But within the past couple of weeks, as I've come into contact with building officials from around different parts of the state that do their job, basically they said there's no reason in the world that you ought not be able to get this bill didn't bother them because they didn't think that you should be able to have a problem getting an inspection within 72 hours. So what this does to me is it looks like it'll make people, I know with our third-party electrical inspections that this body passed out last year, the wait time in Metro Davidson County has really diminished as a result of having some guidelines provided for them. And I think that hopefully this will also do the same. Do we have any questions for our sponsor? I couldn't tell if you were pump faking me there, Chairman Bricken, or not.
One quick question, Mr. Chairman. What happens if they don't meet the deadline?
Mr. Sponsor.
That's an excellent question. The bill doesn't really address that question. It just simply, and I do want to put one clarification in there. This applies to state inspections. I didn't mention that earlier, and I do want to make that clarification. So this would be state entities that are inspecting new or renovated construction. So I want to make that clear. This does not apply to your local jurisdiction or a local municipality or et cetera. So it doesn't specify in the bill any retaliation or consequences for not meeting that deadline. Let's hope that that wouldn't be the case.
Mr. Sponsor, we never retaliate against anyone here around here. We simply enforce the law as it's written. Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the sponsor, we've talked about this, and it's a problem, these long times on inspections. The question I have is, so they can't get there in 3 days. It comes back and they say you have to submit photos. What's to keep the inspector going round and round saying, I need another photo, or that doesn't show what I need? I guess because some of the instances are difficult to prove via photo. I mean, what's to keep this from just going on forever?
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This new amendment doesn't address any photos or anything. It just simply requests or requires that building inspection, regardless of which one it is, be completed within 72 hours. It'll be up to the inspecting department or entity and the individual requesting the inspection on how exactly they get that inspection done.
You good, Representative Freeman? You got a follow-up?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Representative Butler. Obviously, you and I have ordered a couple of inspections over the years. I just want to make sure I understood what it did. The bill through the fiscal note specifically names the Health Facilities Commission, but does it apply to TDEC or the Fire Marshal's Office that are doing those, or because those are state entities? I just didn't know if it were limited only the Health Facilities Commission or no.
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman. That's an excellent question. This would apply to any state entity expecting new or renovated construction. So I would interpret that as broad as possible personally. So that would include the State Fire Marshal's Office. I think it would also, in the Health Commission for sure, and I think you could interpret it to include TDEC when it came related to new or renovated construction.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you. I just know sometimes the state inspections for TDEC are a little bit different because you're establishing, infrastructure things. That a little bit of concern of mine. I'm going to support your bill today. I think we need to make sure that we better or clearly define which state agencies and what the period of time would be. I think as it relates to TDEC, if you're doing a underground stormwater filtration system and you had to start the system and then have it inspected, sometimes it may be that, there are parameters with weather or something that would prohibit you from being able to do that when it's outside. If it's inside, like Health Facilities Commission or Fire Marshal's Office, might be completely different. But love to talk to you after the committee and make sure we're not impugning ourselves.
Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you. Excellent comments. The Health Commission and I have worked together on this bill. I've worked with the State Fire Marshal's Office, and I will say that all the departments that I have talked to all would like to meet this goal They are just kind of in the process of trying to see what they can do. And that was some of the reasoning for putting the certificate of occupancy inspection at 5 days, was to try to get feedback from both sides of the situation. And obviously a certificate of occupancy inspection is a very important inspection. It's a much broader inspection. And the 3 business days is for your intermediary inspections. You know, it'd be footings or something else that's not a real difficult thing to inspect. So with that, I renew my motion.
Don't get ahead of yourself there. Representative Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. I appreciate you working with me on this bill. I think we have practically come to solutions that work both for the contractor and those requesting inspections and for the state agencies, to be practical. My only concern is, and I am a supporter of this bill now, I think we addressed certain things on life safety and certificate of occupancy that give us adequate time to get those things done appropriately. It's just during the holidays and scheduling, make sure that, you know, with vacations and inspectors on vacation and demands and open trenches, we can work practically. And I think that takes good communication between agencies and contractors and planning ahead in anticipation, not just making a call saying, I need an inspection in 72 hours. Hey, give them some advance notice, a week or 10 days in advance, that we're scheduling and we're looking like we're going to need something. And so I appreciate the bill. I think it's going to help us move things along on both sides, but we want to protect the public too. So thank you for this bill.
All righty. Seeing no other hands up today for Representative Butler, I am going to entertain the question on the bill. All those in favor of passing on to Finance Administration, House Bill 1807, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The ayes have it. You're off to Finance.
Thank you, committee.
With the amendment. Okay, we are staying with home. We have no other presenters except we're going to enter the Chairman Boyd portion of our show. First up on the Boyd agenda is House Bill 1276.
Second.
Motion and a second. Let's see. Yes, sir. Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Well, let's handle that amendment. Is that Amendment 13935?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to discuss that amendment, or would you like to get that on that bill?
No discussion, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All those in favor of attaching the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The amendment is attached. Chairman Boyd, now let's discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to roll House Bill 1276 to Commerce Committee's final calendar in understanding that it will subsequently be on the special calendar for such a special bill and very special member, Mr. Chairman.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say special sponsor as well. Without objection, headed to the special calendar. Next up is House Bill 2268 by Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, this is a very simple bill. It simply amends the statute with regard to public auto auctions so that the auction can maintain a motor vehicle dealer license rather than the auctioneer. Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions.
Wow, I'm not so sure that doesn't sound like streamlining, and we do love some streamlining. Let's call the question on streamlining House Bill 2268. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. 2268 is headed to calendar rules. All right, folks. Appreciate your participation today. I think we made our state a little bit better or something. And so we will adjourn until the same time, same channel next week. Have a good day, everybody.
We impacted the state.
Yeah.